Nice. All right, so we're recording. So, in your notes, week 6 classwork. So, I kind of like to start with an image somebody sent me through Facebook that I thought was kind of interesting and true in our class. You know, if you fail, never give up. Fail only means first attempt at learning. And I think we're so culturalized to be afraid of failing, and it's so not true. I mean, if you're failing, it's okay, keep trying. And that's kind of the next one, right? End is not the end. In fact, it means effort never dies. And if you get no for an answer, just mean that's the next opportunity, right? There's another opportunity out there for you. So stay positive, and not just in 2016, but really in life. It's very helpful. So that's my inspirational message for the day, right? Is to stay positive. And when it relates to this class, there you go. That's all right. You're good. You're on it. You're like, yeah, so pull it here. Pull it here. Yeah, that works too. Okay. So when you're in this class, if you're falling behind, other side of the room. If you're falling behind, catch up, right? And if you're doing well, you're happy with your grade, keep going, right? So you know the pace that we're at. So this week I'm going to talk about a few class topics, and then my goal this week is to actually take some of those things we learned last week and give you some more hands-on experiences with them because they're such important things. But let's start here. Lab test is coming up. I did hear that if you download Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint out of the email system, that actually is going to be 2016. The only challenge may be that the lab test instruction and what you've learned has been in 2013, right? And I've asked a couple people, they say it's not a big deal because this not a huge difference like we've had in some other versions. But this does bring up something, and just go to the screen right now, that I want to show you that I've talked about and I just want to bring home in my IT lab. So in your notes, put view submissions. This is going to be true for assessments, training, and the lab test. Is that once you finish something and you hover over it, how many know what this is? It's a down arrow, but it really tells you can view submissions. Now, why is this important? When you're doing the training, and if you view submissions, it'll tell you what you missed. If you're doing the assessments, it'll actually tell you where you clicked and what you missed. Okay? So here's all the step-by-step instruction I've been talking about for quite some time. Right? Now, in this case, I just hit submit so I could get it. And you can do that. But I want you to know is that when you hit view submissions, you get the step-by-step instruction for everything. And this is really helpful in all aspects of my IT lab, and especially when it comes to the lab test. Because here's what's going to happen is once you, and bring it back this way, once you do that lab test, and you can submit it up to 3 times, you can view what you missed. And here's the deal, you don't have to start over, and I've said this, you can just you take that file. That's why it's so important to keep the file you start with, because you're actually doing it in the program in the lab test, and you can just fix what you missed and resubmit the file. It's not like you got to start over, right? Make sense? So view submission is really important. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is that and we've been kind of going around it, and I talked about it in week 1, but I want to bring it a little more clear now, is that if you're kind of looking at the way the grade in this class works as far as items, and that's actually, just go to the screen. That's a good point. Just go to the screen for a second, right? I want you to know this, that if you go down and look here, you see that there's a category for each of the items, like hands-on. So far we've had a couple things, and mostly the Code Academy, right? The chapter quizzes. But don't be deceived, because in Canvas it actually says like 30 points, right? It accounts for more than the hands-on as far as each percentage of each item. So when you look at this, right? So what's the most important thing to do in this class? Of course, if you look at it, probably say the final, because it's 10% of your grade. What's the next most important thing to do? The lab test. Because each lab test, the overall category is 15. We only have 3 of them. It's 5%. So when you look at a class, any class you take, what you want to do is prioritize the things that really hit your grade the most. Okay? This is just in general, good idea to do. So if I was prioritizing, I'd say the most important thing, of course, besides the 2 I've already mentioned, is get those chapter quizzes done. then make sure I get my hands-on stuff done, make sure I get my assessments done, and a classwork done, right? So but again, those are pretty tightly oriented around 1%, so it's not a huge difference there. Okay, now the other thing I want to show you is this, and I'm wondering how many of you have found this particular feature of Canvas. Do you know about the what if? So put in your notes the what if feature. So Canvas allows you to do this. You can ask the what if, right? So the what if might be, I missed a couple items. What if I make them up? What does it do to my grade? So this actually now comes built into Canvas. So like if, and by the way, the only reason, this is a test student, but doesn't matter. But anytime after a grade has been entered, anybody seen this? Where it says click to test a different grade. If you click in there and you put, which by the way, let's just actually talk about the real world example. Let's say you made that up. What's the max points you're going to get? 75%. Let's assume you got all of them, right? And by the way, look what happens is it recalculates your grade based on those, and you can do this for any item in there. And this will become really great towards the end, when you can start asking what do I need to do to get this particular grade in this class. And actually last semester, and probably do it in a way this semester, I had students build a spreadsheet to do this, so I'm so excited that Canvas does this natively, okay? So first, the what if, right? So the what if ability in Canvas. So now let's actually talk about this one. How many of you know, can you, and I think you do, but can you get those 25 points back? Yep, and you know how to do it? Trainings or the extra Code Academy stuff. And I put a thing in Canvas that actually gave you the place in the video where I talked about how to do that, okay? So just FYI. But let me do like this one. Let's say the student got 90%, okay? Again, we're still in the what if, but we're playing now kind of a little different scenario. Let's say this student submitted and the grade, and they submitted the work, but they just missed one thing. Maybe they didn't put the link in correctly or something. But now the due date has passed, okay? And they see it. And they're like, I want those 10 points back. And they fix whatever it is that wasn't correct after the due date. Do they get more points in that example? No, because why? Because it's late. And if you ask me to late grade something, what's the max points you're going to get? 75. You with me? Okay, this is a real example. Student and I have been conversing back and forth to try to help her understand, and I thought, I can help you all understand this, right? So this is actually another reason to work ahead, because if you miss something, I'm going to tell you, and you can fix it before that due date, right? But if you're waiting until the due date, which is cool, whatever, I just want you to get it done, but then you miss a few points and you're like, dude, I totally want those points back. You know, you could, let's actually play this out. Could they actually get to 100%? Let's assume they fixed whatever it was they broke. How would they get to 100%? Because if it's late graded, I'm only going to give them 75%. They can still use those late points returned. Right? Now, in that case, you might not be as wanting to use it because it's only 10 points versus 25. Are you guys with me? Gals? Everybody with me? Okay. All right. So if put in your notes so that you get an idea what I'm talking about. And I think I have a slide for it in a minute. Or actually, it's right here. It's the late grade example, right? So I just want you to know how this really works in the real world examples of what's happening in the class. The last thing I'll say on class topics is this, is that sometimes on the chapter quizzes, you may answer and do the box shot. Yeah, there you go. On a chapter quiz, you may have answered something and you thought that's right, right? Anybody have that happen? So what you can do is email me, and by the way, from now on, always email me through Canvas, not through, and I do that because of a compliance issue, not because I would rather use my Gmail, but I get it on my phone regardless. But you can ask me to review that quiz, and I will be happy to go in and look at it. But make sure you do this, right? On the thing I see most students doing is on the matching, they're not doing uppercase, commas, and spaces. Okay, so when you have the matching questions where you have to match up, right, the things, so it's uppercase, comma, and spaces. Put that in your notes. Uppercase, commas, and spaces. That will give you the most opportunity to get 100%. Okay, and of course, searching. Hopefully, you're all learning this searching thing in PDF in the ebook as well. Cool. Okay, so that's class topics. So today we're actually going to take what we talked, so in your notes you can put the big three if you want again, and this is a continuation from last week, and we talked about how to understand how these three things work inside of your computer. And I gave you an example, but today we're actually going to do something hopefully that brings this even more real. And we're going to do it in terms, by the way, this is a review, right? Speed increases as we go. Hard drive is the slowest thing. Processor is the fastest thing. Memory capacity increases this way. And this affects your performance, right? So, but we're going to keep it even more real, my hope is. And here's how we're going to do it. We're actually going to learn something, if you have never done this, which I suspect most haven't. The new feature of Google Drive, most people, when they learn about, they're like, that's cool. Okay? But before I do that, I want to show you this. So just go to the screen real quick. Now that I'm logged in, do you know you can go docs.google.com? What do you think? How would docs.google.com be different than drive.google.com? Huh? No, it's not the same. This only shows me documents, right? So in Google, right, if you look at it, it's got docs, sheets, and docs, sheets, slides, and the new one we're going to learn today. So docs is word processing. So sheets, if I did that, sheets.google.com would take me right to sheets. So if I wanted to do a sheet, so by the way, that late points removed is a sheet. And you're going to learn about sheets when you learn about Excel. And the one you're going to learn today, so put this in your notes, is forms.google.com. So we see forms all over the web. You fill them out all the time, right? It's just something you do. So what I've done is I've created a form, and you're going to fill this form out, okay? And I'm going to show you how to do this. We're going to walk through it, and you're going to do it based on your operating system. But here's the deal. I'm going to show you how to actually to answer some of these questions, because some of these are not going to be totally obvious to you, I'm guessing. Okay? But by the way, first thing we ask is, what's the operating system? Okay? Make sense? And then we'll ask, you'll see, we're going to go through all these. But what do you think is the most common operating system today? Windows 7. So, by the way, what operating system am I running today? Mac, right here, right? So this is Mac OS. So if I showed you how to do this in Mac, I would only be showing a small percentage of you how to do this, right? So why don't I grab Windows? Well, how could I do it? Can I just switch? That seems like it'd be hard. I'm going to do something called remote desktop. So put that in your notes, remote desktop. And there's various ways to do it, but I'm going to do it using Google Chrome. So check this out. I'm going to open up remote desktop, and it's an app. And if you haven't seen the Chrome store, it's awesome. It's all these little add-in programs you can get for your Chrome. I'm going to launch the app. And then what it's going to tell me is you have all these computers you have access to that I've set up with remote desktop. So by the way, this is an example of my mom calls me and says, hey, I can't get something to work, and I get onto her computer and I fix it. Remote desktop is really handy. So in this situation, I'm going to run Windows 7. By the way, security, really important here, right? Because you don't want just anyone getting into your system. Let's see if I type that right. Did you get what I just did? So this is live. This is live. This is me now on a Mac running remote desktop to get to a Windows 7 computer. Are you impressed? We ain't done yet, right? So I'm trying to impress you a little bit, right? So some of the fun things we can do. So in this case, by the way, we've already done this, but just as a review, how would I find the operating system? Here, anybody remember? Computer, right-click, properties. So the answer to the first one in this case would be Windows 7, right? So I'm gonna for a second, just because I'm gonna have both Windows and my form open, which is right here. Okay. So what we're doing is walking you through how to fill this out. Not too bad. Now, is the operating system, and OS means operating system, 32 or 64-bit? How do you find that answer? And why do you care? Because if you're running 64-bit, it's probably going to run a little faster. It's going to take more advantage of your RAM. than a 32-bit would. And all that means is your processor can handle more chunks at a time, basically. So let's go back. Let's go back to my example here. I think it's right. Where's it at? See, this part of the channel. Oh, there we go. Okay. So does it tell me right here what version of Windows 7, 64, or 32? Right there. See that? 64, right? So when you're answering this question, and by the way, once I finish this, I'm going to show you how to do this on the other two major operating systems that you're probably running, right? Okay, so let's go back here. 60. So in this case, let's just fill it out as we go. We go Windows 7, we go 64-bit. Now, how many cores in my Windows 7? Anybody remember? I actually showed how to do this last week. Very nice. There was, and you remember what I used to get it? Task Manager, right? That's awesome. Control-Alt-Delete, we call it the three-finger salute. That's kind of a joke. Okay, so, but I can right-click anywhere on the taskbar at the bottom, and I can do Start Task Manager. And Task Manager we're going to look at quite a bit, and here's what we could say is an I, and by the way, what in the processor I think I ask in a minute, but I actually think it's the next question. So we have 4 cores in this computer, right? So you're going to be answering those questions. Let me go back just real quick. So by the way, default when you come in here is probably here. Most people only come here to in programs. That's generally why they come. Most people don't realize there's all this other information about what's happening inside of your operating system that's really beneficial. Okay, so we got that. How many cores? 4. What CPU is it running? Okay. And by the way, did we already see that in a screen? Yeah, right here. Right click on computer, properties. I'm going to leave this because we're going to come back to it. So what processor am I running here? Core Intel, which is, by the way, the company. Core i5, and it's running at 2.9 gigahertz. Remember me saying how many billions of things per second that thing's doing, right? So I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to say it is a Intel, what is it, Core i7? i5. I'm going to have an i7 in a second, and it's running at 2.9 GHz. By the way, the difference in the form, because this is just an entry, we're not going to get as good of a visual that you'll get on some other things. But it's good to know. So how about this? How much RAM? Anybody see it when we were on the screen a minute ago? How much RAM? 8 gigabytes. Okay? So the reason you want to kind of in your notes, because you're going to end up having to do some print screens. I'm not looking for notes here, but you're going to need to do this on your home computers, whatever your operating system is. That's why you might want to take a few notes just to remind yourself. Okay, so let's go back to my form and finish up. So here we go, 8, right? Now this is one that I talked about last week that you have to know how to calculate. So what I'm asking here is what percentage of RAM is available once the computer has booted, is available to you without running anything else. And this is important because what this says is, remember me talking about how much your operating system takes and all those other little things that are running? I want to know what percentage of your RAM is available, because we have 8 gigs, but do we have 8 gigs available to us? No, no way. Be nice if we did, right? Again, the 64-bit version does this a little better. But let's go back here. So where do we find this answer? In Task Manager. So let's come over to Task Manager. Let's go to Performance. Under Performance, we have 8 gigs available. We saw that earlier, right? Somebody zoom this in. It's the students in class see it a little easier, but I think they should see that okay. So 8 gigs, and we have available is 5. Almost 6, right? So how do we express that as a percentage? Right? Actually, it's here too, 28%, right? So we could figure this out though, right? So let's actually keep in mind. So it's 8.1, and we have 5.8 available, right? So that's basically what they're doing is calculating it. So that's how much memory actually no. No, actually, let's do it. Let's do the calculation, just because I want you to know how to do this. right? So by the way, another cool thing about Google, if you don't know, it does calculations for you. So how would we do this? We'd say it's what? Because our number available is what? 5.8, and total is 8, right? So really, look at this. How much do we have? Is it 72% available? Used. So available would be 28%, which was close to that number, right? It is 28%. So I want you to see that's how it's calculated. It's like you have 8 available. I mean, you have 8 total, but you're using 5.8 of it, right? So really, it would take this number and inverse it. That's how you get the percentage. Good? So the answer here is what? 28%. Okay? Now what I want you to do is do a relative speed to, so this was going to tell us how much of your CPU just to do a simple thing like running Microsoft Word. Okay, so again, what operating system am I showing you this on? Windows 7. Okay, so there's a cool thing you can do where you say always keep this puppy on type. And now I'm going to come down here, I'm going to pull this up a little bit. I'm going to start Word. By the way, I use this where I type on all the operating systems. If you're not, it just is easier and faster. So when I start typing, for me, for you, you can do it however. So what you want to do is look at this number right here, right? What's the max number when I start Word? So what's the answer? Did you see it? 32%. So what you want to do is figure out what you, and if yours was 70%, what would that tell you relative to my computer? Yours, whose is faster? Mine, because it needs less processor to do a common task. Cool? Starting to make sense, hopefully? So let's go back to our form, and we're going to say, so what's the answer here? This one, right? Well, okay, so now let's talk about hard drive. Let's talk about the capacity of the hard drive. We've actually already shown this one as well. Do we find that in Task Manager? Anybody remember? No. We'd find it right here in Computer. Let me just pull this aside for a second. And let me pull it really aside for a second. So what is the total capacity of my C drive? 119. Okay, so you want to make sure you know how to find that number. So 119 would be like right here. How full is it though? What percentage full is that? How would you find it? Could we do something like we did with the RAM? Right? So somebody walk me through it. I did it. So what do we do? Because, oh, by the way, let's remember the numbers. So it's 67.5 what? 119. So 67. So we do 67.5. Was it 5 or 7 like that by 119? So is that 55%? So is that what's available? That's what's used. So what's available? 45. Make sense? So we come back to the form and we say, hit this one. Good so far? So by the way, these forms are awesome because we're all going to get, when your data starts flowing in here, we can make some really interesting discussions about what's happening with our collective computers, which is really fun. But let's go to here. This is one that most people need to know. How fast is your internet? Now, why am I talking about that related to the computer speed? Because people think their internet's slow when their computer's just slow. So it's good to know your relative speed. Okay? So here's what you do. You go to your favorite search engine and you say internet speed test. I already did one because I wanted to know. But you could just go internet speed test. And how many of you have done this? Oh, if you haven't, you definitely want to. Do me a double box shot. You definitely want to know your internet speed, especially if you're paying for a higher tier. Okay? Many of you through DSL, Comcast, or whatever now can pay for a higher tier. But if you're not checking, if you get that higher speed, you shouldn't be paying. So let's talk about what this looks like. This is one that's a pretty good example. But I went ahead and did it because I wanted it, because when I did this test yesterday in class, it was really slow. But check this out. I actually did this a few minutes ago. Is that speed pretty phenomenal? Holy mac, right? And some of you might think, wait a minute, you're on Fresno City College campus. How can it be that fast? And the answer is, I'm wired. Anytime you're wired into a network, it's always faster. Wi-Fi is notoriously slow. Now, when we get to the network lectures in a couple weeks, I'm going to show you how to make that better if you want to invest a little money. I did it last semester, and I could not be happier. Because for me, I have Comcast. I'm getting around 100 megabits per second at my house. My Wi-Fi used to be around 220 megabits. Holy mac, I'm paying for 100 and I'm only getting 2. Most devices are Wi-Fi, right? So I bought a new router. And man, am I a happy camper now. Because I'm pretty much getting my wired speeds now. Okay, so we'll come back. Any questions about that? Okay, we'll come back to that discussion. So what's the answer here? Greater, right? Okay, so it'll be interesting to see when we all collectively do this. Now the rest of these are just like Chrome, my favorite browser. Do I have a smartphone? Heck yeah. Do I have a Facebook account? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so far, so what you're going to do is you're going to go through and fill this out. I'm going to show you in a minute how to do it on the other 2 common operating systems. But here's the key. Now that you've done it, you need to show me you've did it. And now go to the screen and let me show you how to do this. How many know you can print to a PDF? Oh, this is fun then. This is so good to know. So now I'm going to hit submit. And when I hit submit, I actually get 2 options. I can either submit another response, which only do it once, just for, if we get, the better the data we get, the better we can make some discussion about it. But see this part right here? So put it in your notes. View previous submissions will actually show you when you did it. By the way, I'm the only one that's filled it out right now. Okay? So there's only been 2 responses, but that's okay. So check this out. Isn't this awesome? This is visualizing the data. So this form with Google Docs allows you to immediately, as soon as you submit it, see the visualization of the data itself. Because when you look at raw numbers, sometimes relative, it's hard to understand it. But when you look at it visually, which you'll learn in Excel, it's really cool. Now, you might think, how would I get that whole thing and prove that to Rio I did it? It's really cool. File, print, and check this out. Normally, you'll probably be going to a printer, right? You just say, save the PDF. You can see that? I went a little fast. So hit change. And by the way, you want to be using Chrome when you do this. Hit change and then change to save to PDF. And now when you hit save, it's going to take that whole page and it's going to create a PDF of what that page is. Now I did it yesterday, so I just have to replace it. Now the other thing that's important to know there is what you think. Where did it save to, right? Because you're going to end up uploading that into what directory you think. Yeah, shared with me, right? So let's actually go find that file. I think it's under, if I remember right, yeah, it's under documents. It's right here. Okay? So if I looked at that PDF, that is just a... So I'm just telling you this because it is really good to know. Trust me, when you're doing research, if you want a page of what that web page is, just print a PDF and then you have it available to you. There's just really good, not only kind of bringing some of these skills home, but hopefully giving you a couple of more. Okay, how do I get this into Google Drive? You might know? There's like 10 ways, but I could come here, make sure I'm in the shared with Rio, and then what would I do? Yeah, drag the file is so much easier, but you can do file and then file upload, right? But I like to work smarter and not harder, which by the way, I'm done with this. So let me go ahead for a second here and drop that. I'm going to drop Windows 7 for a second. I'm going to grab, and by the way, I'm in, let's go here. I'm in Mac OS X. And by the way, in Mac, I also have a little helper app called Google Drive. So I see it as another drive in my computer. But here's all I'd have to do now that I'm in that directory. Click, drag, and drop. And then it just uploads into my, and notice I did this yesterday. But, okay. You good so far? So we filled out the form, and then we did what? View previous submissions, and then we saved the PDF, and then we uploaded to Drive. And now you're going to give me a link in your classwork. And if you've used the folders the way I've asked, all you have to do, double click. Now what do? Pop out. Don't forget that step. Most people have got it. A few people are still getting it. And then I copy and paste that and put a link in your classwork. Good? Good? Okay. All right. So that's let me go back to my lecture. So that's me showing you forms, because it's really good, and this is what we just did, and I'll give you the link to my form, right? And this is, once you do it, and this is just a repeat of what we did, view previous submissions and print a PDF, upload it, and then give me a link in your classwork. Okay? Part 2 is actually, I want you to create a form. Because trust me, in your academic career, you are going to need to do this at some point. You want to survey people, you want to find out information, so I want you to create a form. So I want to show you how to do that. And then I'm going to show you how to answer this on other operating systems. So check this out, right? We're sitting here, and again, what I did is I went to forms.google.com. You can also do file new under the drive, and you'll see it there. And check this out. It gives you all these different pre-set up stuff, but I'd like you to do your own. So here, go in here, and it gives you, here's your base template of what your form would look like. By the way, what does that little circle mean? Loading, 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 right? Oh, there we go. Okay. So you'd name it here, give it a description, right? And here, you can start with your first question, right? So what is your favorite food, right? First one might be pizza, right? Second one might be more pizza? No. How about beer? No. How about, you get the idea, right? So here's the deal. You don't have to come up with 5 questions. And check this out. There's multiple choice, there's short answer, there's check boxes. Most of my stuff was check boxes. I did have a scale in there, right? When I did the cores, that was a scale. So all you have to do is come up with 5 questions, right? And then it's really good if you give, the more you think about how you want the data to look is really important. Again, me showing you what the results look like. Sound like fun? So here's the other thing. Once you come up in a minimum of 5, you can do more if you want, then have 5 of your friends fill it out. And you can send them a link. You can post it on social media. I don't care. And then when you're done, you'll go to your responses and you'll do that same thing where you hit File, Print, PDF, and upload it. Cool? Now what I'm going to do, I decided after a lecture yesterday, I'm actually going to give you until week 7 to actually give me the results, right? But next week you'll need to give me your link to your form. So in week 6 classwork, you'll give me the link to the form. Cool? Okay. So now I'm going to have you do 2 other print screens, kind of some of the stuff. So let's talk about this one. By the way, taking a print screen here, do you take the whole screen? No, just take a part of it. And by the way, do you want to include your IP address? No. Very nice. If you know you shouldn't, why shouldn't you include your IP address? Well, it's like your home address, right? But for anybody that wants to find your router at your house or your modem, boom, boom, right there. So if I was to take on Mac a print screen here, right? All I'd probably want to include is that right there. You see it? Right? So that's what I want you to do there. You'll also take a print screen of sorting the CPU and the memory, which I'm going to show you here in a second. Okay, so now, before I get to the next, I want to show you how to do the same thing on a Mac. Okay, so in your notes, even though you may not have a Mac, I want to show you how to do this on a Mac. So on Mac, it's something called Activity Manager, Activity Monitor. And it's awesome because it's as good as what Windows have, and if not better, right? So here we get this similar looking thing where we have CPU. So what did I do? I did Spotlight Activity Manager, right, for the Mac. Again, this you don't have to do it on a Mac, but if you do, and by the way, by next week, we'll have enough responses. I'm going to start seeing what percentage of you all have Macs. So we'll have an interesting discussion. So what I can do here is figure out the operating system is pretty easy. You go up to Mac, you go up to the Apple, about this, and here's my processor, here's my RAM, okay, and here's my operating system. So I can answer those 3 questions just from that one, so Apple and then about the Mac, okay. So then over here in the number of CPUs, I could double click here. How many CPUs in here? You would think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What was the processor? It was a, did it say here? Yeah, this is an i7. So why would it have 8? So part of that is you just have to figure out, and by the way, do you notice what's, and these are little activities right here? So how many of those that are showing of 8 are actually getting activity? 4. So really an i7 really only has 4, even though I don't know why. I have to do a little research about why Mac does that. Okay, so that's how you find how many cores. And then on the memory, here we go, we have 16 physical, and then we have 8 used. You could do that same calculation we showed before. Okay, and I think that should get you on the Mac what you need to do to answer that. Now, what's the other operating system I should probably show that most people are using? Windows 10. So let's do that. In your notes, I'm going to use something called VirtualBox. I've been talking about it at the beginning of the semester, and now I'm going to show you. So in the last example where I was doing Windows 7, I was actually doing remote desktop to get to another operating system. And now I'm actually going to run another operating system virtualized in the one I'm on. So I'm on Mac, and I'm going to run Windows. Not natively, virtualized. So check this out. VirtualBox, free. Love it, right? And can you all now get access to Windows if you don't have it? Absolutely. I needed to upgrade my version, but okay. So if I had multiple versions of Windows virtualized, I'd show them here, but I only have one. So all I have to do over here is hit Start. And then in a second, it won't take very long. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch. Click OK a couple times. And now, boom, we're running Windows 10 virtualized on my Mac. Are you impressed now? I don't know. Are you impressed now? I don't know. I am, actually. I'm impressed it worked. Okay. So I'm going to log in, because you have to log in to any operating system pretty much these days, right? And there's Windows 10. Somebody said the other day it looks like a dungeon, because it's like the lights shining through into the dungeon. I don't know if that's true. So here's what you can do. On Windows 10, you can just do My Computer. Again, I like these just typing in and finding the so there's my computer. And then I could do Computer here, and I could do Properties. So this answers the processor question. This answers the RAM question. By the way, why do you think the RAM here is so low? It's only 1.64. Because the answer is, when I virtualize an operating system, I tell it how much RAM it needs. Because I don't need a full one, because I'm only virtualizing it. So I'm not going to take, because of my 8 gig, I don't want to give it too much, because it's going to start sucking up my native resources. By the way, if we went into the Mac right now, would we see a resource hit by starting this up? Big time. Okay? All right, so here we go. 32-bit operating system. All right, so that answers most of it. So what's the other thing we need to do is we need to start the task manager on Windows 10. So you could actually just type task manager, and there's a task manager app. Now it looks a little different. Matter of fact, here's what you'll see when you come in. It looks a little different from the one in Windows 7, doesn't it? So all you have to do here is do more details. And then when you drop more details, you can get what looks similar. This is starting to look pretty similar. I can go to performance, right? CPUs here. Let's see, can I do, no, I do see the number of cores. It's in here. Oh, here it is. Open. Okay, so now if I want to see the number of cores inside of Windows 10 in my task manager, I do open resource monitor. And now I would get that same thing. Let me minimize this. So how many cores? How many cores do I have here? Looks like 4, doesn't it? But I don't think that's right. There we go. Because again, because I'm running virtualized, it's not going to show me natively. So when you get in here, you'll see that, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go back to overview, right? CPUs. Let me see if I got another way to look at that CPU. I think that should be okay, right? Okay, so that tells me the number of that. And then if I go to memory, it shows me how much I have available is 1.1. Let's say 1 available. Oh, no, sorry. Total installed 1.6 and available is 1.1. So you can do that calculation to figure that out. Okay? So this shows you how to do it in the major operating systems. Good? So I want you to, in addition to filling the form out, I want you to give me a print screen of the internet speed, and I want you to sort this task manager or activity manager on whatever operating system in the following ways. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and get out of here and go back to this one, I think right here, right? So I'm going to go to CPU, and actually on this one it's pretty much right here. Shows me my CPU processes and my memory, what's going on in these, and just take a print screen of these two so I can see them. And then on the Mac side, you can do something similar where you take a print screen here. This is actually a little more what it looks like. And by the way, isn't it funny? I'm running 2 operating systems. What operating system am I here? Anybody remember? This is Mac. That's Windows 10, right? I'm going to drop Windows 10 so I don't get confused. So what I want you to do here, and by the way, I sometimes lose my mouse and I have to go back and do, there we go. There we go. So if I sort this, and this is true on all of these, if I sort by CPU, it tells me what's getting the most of my CPU, which, who's surprised? On my Mac, what's getting the most of my CPU is that virtual box running Windows 10. Because I'm running an operating system, and an operating system, it's going to take a lot. So then I'm going to do this by memory. I'm going to sort again by memory to see what's taking, and it's also, not only is it getting the most of my processor, it's getting the most of my memory as well. So I want you to take a print screen of sorted by CPU and sorted by memory. So you'll end up giving me 3 print screens in addition to the form results that I talked about earlier, okay? By the way, the other reason this is good, and bring it back for a second, the other reason it's good to know this is also when you're troubleshooting if you think you have viruses. Because if your processor's just sitting there and you're not doing anything, and besides system idle or maybe some other thing that you know is running, if something's bumping up with memory and CPU and you don't know what it is, go to Google and ask it. Because is an easy way to figure out if there's something taking up your resources. Okay? Helpful? Did you learn something today? So let's just come back to what we talked about, right? So we took what we learned last week, right, in relation, and this is the 3 print screens I was talking about. Oh, let me say this. But what we did here is we took what we learned last week and we made it more real, hopefully, to you, right? What's really going on in your CPU? How many cores do you have? What processor do you have? What operating system are you running? How much RAM? How much is available? We looked at hard drive capacity. By the way, the more things on your hard drive over time, the slower it will get as well. So one thing I do want to say about this internet speed, though, we've been talking about megabytes and gigabytes on the computer, right? This memory storage or the storage capacity. When we talk about data communications, we talk about it in terms of bytes, not bits, not bytes. So this is 402, which I doubt anybody will get that fast, but boy, I'd be happy if you got that speed. But here's how we say it: megabits per second. So when we talk about RAM, we talk about it as megabytes. So one bit is a bit, 8 is a byte. So when we talk about hard drive and RAM capacity, right, we talk about it in terms of bytes. When we talk about communication, we talk about it in terms of bits. Okay, so I just want you to know that, because you can't equivocate the two, and people often try to, and they often will try to fool you because if you don't understand that there are a different numbering system. Which, by the way, what's the difference in when are you downloading and when are you uploading? So this is testing 2 things. It's testing your download speeds and your upload speeds. And the answer is when you're browsing the web, you're downloading it. And we'll talk about why that's a challenging thing from your computer's perspective. But when you're putting stuff like up on Facebook or uploading photos, you're uploading, okay? So most importantly, because 99% of the time people are downloading, that's why this number is the most important. And it's generally always the higher one. Cool? Okay, so I had originally intended for the last thing to be is to start into our software discussion, but I think what I'm going to do is, because I forgot, I can't believe this, but I forgot that we're out on Friday and Monday. So in week 7, I'm going to have you do this. I'll have you also make sure you give me your results of your forms, and I'll probably have one other short video for you in week 7. Okay? All right, let's say goodbye to them. Let's show them. Everybody say goodbye. We'll see you next, well, we won't see you next week. We'll see you the week after. Okay? Cool. And then just drop it. Yeah, there you go.